What's up, everybody? Welcome back to DB Squared. We're out here at the General GNCC in Georgia. It is hot. It is about 72, give or take. Very, very dusty. So it's a drastic difference from going from the sand over there at the Wild Boar GNCC in Florida now to here. We're actually on the EMTB trail, which is pretty crazy, just actually scoping out what those guys do. But the four-wheeler race is going on right now. Walker Fowler, pole shot, has been leading ever since, but we'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. Okay, for just a second, we're going to talk about what the track looked like. It was very hot. Georgia has some very rocky clay compared to the Wild Boar GNCC in Florida last week. Totally drastic difference. Now, this track is fast. Last week was fast as well. Nothing super tight here. Aonia Pass has this really kind of I would say clay-like dirt that you can really get a lot of hold of. It's a lot of open trail compared to some really tight stuff that we see later on in the year. So these guys absolutely fly through this section that we're in right now. We have Fowler coming through, I believe, here in about 2 seconds. And the battle for the win was actually really tight. I want to say it was like a half a second at the end of it. But this is such a fast track. You kind of get deeper into the woods, things get tighter. There's a lot of line selection, but there's about 5 or 6 miles of this that look a lot like this. A lot of, third, fourth gear sections where everything can get spread out. And it did that in kind of the middle of the race, but lap traffic kind of brought everything back together. You had Fowler, and in second place, they were really tightening up there. Actually, I think he won by about 0.6 of a second, which was incredible. Right there, I thought that guy was going to get out of control and knock me out. Hiding behind a tree, but sometimes things can get pretty hairy out there. But this was a section, and there were a lot of them just like this, where it kind of started the day out. Everything was flat. There might have been a few little bumps, but we started getting whoops build up from the, coming out of the corner all the way to the end of the straightaways, going through the woods. Great track. Last year, the biggest issue with the GNCC's 2 rounds in Georgia were it ended up being either extremely wet in round 1, which can be a lot of fun depending on how well you are in the mud, or round number 2 after the pandemic when we came back and it was just extremely dusty. It did start working its way closer to a dusty version of the track as we went through the day here. You had, I want to say, 600 or 700 ATVs flying through this in the pro class or in the 2A or 2 p.m. race, so had a lot of four-wheelers going over it, really kicking it up a lot, and it just got dustier throughout the weekend, so we didn't see any rain at all as we went along. And it was a really racy track, which I was a pretty big fan of. And I think for the four-wheeler guys, and I can't obviously speak for them, I've never ridden one before, but this is a track that actually gave you a lot of opportunities to pass people, not just in those open sections. It's a little bit different than it was last year. They kind of rounded us in some different areas. This is one of those sections that's slowly working your way back down into the woods. And sometimes, on a bike course or when you're on a bike, it's easier to get into a line that's one laned, and it might be a little bit longer, but it's an area where you can carry more speed and fly by somebody. And I kind of felt like it kind of worked out that way for the ATV guys as well. They had a lot of really good width between a lot of these sections, and as we worked closer and closer into the woods or deeper into the woods, it did get a lot rootier. Had some pretty big roots going kind of the whole way across the track, where, and I'm not exactly sure how it works on an ATV, maybe somebody can tell me in the comments section, but on a bike, if you do not hit that root as square as possible and you're standing up ready for it, when it catches your front end, it can throw you down. And this is another part, you don't get too much of it. Four-wheelers really do it a lot, but really starting to dig in some really deep ruts here. This was pretty early on in the race, and they just got deeper. There was a lot of sections that four-wheelers and the bikes were on together, and we had, kind of almost knee-deep ruts throughout the entire day as we were going along. And you can see it with these guys. They're really deep down in there. In some of these ruts, it's over the tire. This was coming right after checkpoint here. Pretty fast section that kind of loops you right back down into the woods. I was a big fan of it. A couple really good passing areas right there if you can get out of that corner a little better than the next guy. I thought it was actually a pretty good spot where they had checkpoint this year. I believe it was at like the same spot, but just the way everything was routed. This is coming back up out of the woods, probably about 4 or 5 miles in, I would assume here. And it's just showing how rough this section really is. But you can carry a whole bunch of speed. Unfortunately, the far outside wasn't very rough, but still was a really long distance around there to get back. But this is coming to checkpoint at the other direction. Things kind of dropping down, getting really tight as you come around. This is coming up to checkpoint, a very small hill climb. Nothing really too crazy here. A very fast section here though. You could really romp on it third, fourth gear. Fourth gear might be more A-class guys, but you could carry a whole lot of speed going up this section. The other nice part of it was it kind of plateaued off before you went down into the final two corners there. You could kind of slow yourself down without having to use a whole bunch of the brakes, which makes life a little bit easier depending on how fast you really are going there. But this was a nice section. This is where you could really start to see that Sunday was going to wind up being a pretty dusty day. And this was just one of those sections coming down. We're actually headed towards the creek now, so headed down this section. The creek is the only place it was really wet. Everybody kind of carries all of that water up onto the track, and as they're moving, everything just gets wetter and gets deeper, and a bunch of people had some trouble there. We'll watch a little bit more of that as we get later into the video, but by about this stage, the lead's up to about 5-10 seconds. Starts to stretch it a little bit, but then again they catch up to lap traffic. Walker Fowler in the top 3 or 4 there, they start tightening things back up. In the Pro-Am class, things got tightened up again. So let's go ahead, check in, see where everybody's at, and keep on going. Okay, so the Pro ATV class right now being led by Walker Fowler. We're on lap number 5. They should be coming to the checkered here shortly. We're just going to run down the list of who's running where. It has been very, very stretched out. This track is very technical. It is very dry. Once you kind of get spaced out, it's really hard to make up ground on a lot of people. But we got Walker Fowler leading the way. Then we have B. Neal, C. Richardson, J. McClure running 5th, A. McGill is in 5th, and H. Hart is in 6th. Now Hart, I believe, was 2nd or 3rd in the championship standing, so if he can wrap, head up that list a little bit, that will drastically help him. We're going to take a look at the XC2 Pro-Am class. R. Roush is leading that one. They're on lap 3. He's got about a 3-minute lead, or a 3-second lead. And then K. Wyo, T. Walker, B. Owens, B. Keselowski, K. Scheich, round out your top 6 right now. So a lot of familiar names up at the top of both of those classes. I believe Fowler should be coming here around for the checkered here shortly. We're going to do just like we did in the last video. We're going to wrap this up talking about the overall finishes and the point standings as we head into round number 4 over in South Carolina. Okay, so this is that other side of the creek where things were really rough here. On the side of it with the bikes, it was actually pretty easy to get up. These guys, they got some really deep ruts, and it kind of carries all of that water onto this next section, the bottom of that hill, and then up into even the other side. You can see here they're kind of getting stuck up. Another guy decides to try and take an alternative route. For bikes, that's incredible. I'm actually kind of surprised he was able to find a way up. This guy let him in here, but really shows you how things can really tighten up, and a bottleneck can happen so easy. Happens all the time in the 10 a.m. race. I mean, I had such a hard weekend this weekend. We put a brand new Tokyo Mods motor in my race bike, had an issue with the ECU, and then basically it would not run if I pulled in the clutch or slowed down very much. It wouldn't stay running, so I had to, anytime I needed to slow down with a slight bottleneck, I had to have the clutch in with a lot of throttle on to keep that thing running. And as soon as these bottlenecks come up, it can just make it so much more difficult. It can really completely change somebody's race if they can make their way through it. Coming down this hill up this next section was awesome. Probably one of my favorite parts of the track, and I would assume for these guys too. It really flowed well. You could carry a whole lot of speed. This is coming back from that section, headed back up towards the finish line, kind of weaving and bobbing your way around that side of the track. And this is one thing, the angle is kind of bad on the camera, but I loved the fact that there's so much on this track that you could see as a spectator. Kind of my dad chasing me around in the 10 a.m. race. You could see so many different parts in one lap of where everybody was at and keep up well. Okay, so the checkered has finally fallen. Fowler has won another one. He's going to be extending that points lead. We're not sure where everybody else has rounded out in the Pro class and the Pro-Am class. We're going to wrap that up at the end of the video. But thank you guys for joining us here at the General GNCC at Aonia Pass in Georgia. We'll be headed out to South Carolina for the Camp Kirker Bullet in 2 weeks' time. So we'll also have coverage of tomorrow's 1 p.m. race, the 10 a.m. Bike race as well. So thank you guys for checking out DB Squared. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, and let us know what you think we can do better. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to talk about is the top 5 in both the Pro ATV class and the Pro-Am ATV class. So rounding out the top 5 here, we had Walker Fowler with the win. He had a 1 hour, 53 minutes, 51 seconds, 9:79. And then take a look at Bryce Neal. He was at 1:53, 52, 5:98. So about 0.6 of a second difference between the top two. which was an incredible battle. It really did stretch out a little bit there in the middle, and they brought it back together. But then you had Jared M. McClure, who ended up a couple minutes back from that. Adam McGill, who was right on top of him as well. There was about 5 seconds between third and fourth there for the battle for the podium. And then about a minute back from both of those guys was Chris M. Borge at a minute 56. If we take a look at the Pro ATV AM, we had Ronnie Roush, 2 hours, 4 minutes, 12 seconds there. It was a relatively close battle between him and second with Tanner Walker, about a minute behind. Brandon Owens was about a minute behind from there, rounding out third. Kevin Yoho, sorry if I'm butchering anybody's name, but he was about 26 seconds back from there. And then about another 35 seconds back was Benar Kozlowski. So the top 5 from both of those classes. Okay, so now we're 3 rounds in. We got 13 rounds this year, so another 10 to go. So all kinds of different things can happen. In the 10 a.m. class, I've had a pretty rough go. We were 14th basically every round. Actually, round number 2, we DNF'd with a big issue. But there's a lot of time left for everybody. Walker Fowler right now, he's 85 points total here. So he's about 25 or 24 in the lead of Hunter Hart. So he's starting to stretch it out in there. Hunter Hart has about a 6-point gap between him and Bryce Neal, who's at 55, so he's 40 down or 30 down on Walker Fowler. And then Jared M. McClure in fourth at 51, so it's really tight there from second down to fifth with Chris M. Borge at 49. So the battle for the top 5 there is getting big. We have Ben R. Kozlowski in the Pro-Am class at 71, him and Ronnie Roush at 70, so a very tight battle there. 8 points down is Tanner Walker at 62, so 9 from the lead, 8 from second. You have Kenny Scheich at 49 overall and Brandon Owens at 44. So a very tight battle between the bottom 4 of the top 5 in the Pro ATV class. A very tight battle at the top 3 in the Pro-Am class. So there's a lot of season left to go, a lot of coverage left. I've been having a lot of fun with it. Let me know what you guys think of the video, the content, what you think we can do better. Like the video, subscribe, tell me what you guys think, and we will see you in DB Squared in the next one. Thanks for watching.